Tonight you are going to lay in bed, push a button on your phone, and turn off your lights. You will close your eyes, and you will expect to sleep for 8 hours straight. But for 99.9% of human history, this routine was completely impossible. Our ancestors spent half their lives in absolute darkness with no screens or electricity. They had to face long, pitch-black nights where dangerous animals hunted right outside their caves. Yet, they did not stay awake, crying from stress or panic. So how did they actually live through those dark hours before the modern world took over? The answer changes everything we think we know about our sleep, our mental health, and what it truly means to be human. To find out, we have to look deeper into the shadows of our past, where a forgotten habit is still waiting to be found. To understand how we lost this ancient connection, we have to travel back to the places where our story first began. Let us start by looking at how our ancestors found a way to survive the terrifying dark. For a long time, the night was not a time for comfort. It was a time of pure survival. If you walked out into the open after sunset, you were putting your life on the line. But everything shifted when we learned to control fire. Scientists found deep proof of this change at Wonderwork Cave in South Africa. They discovered that about 1 million years ago, early humans began keeping fires alive inside these deep caves. This was not just a way to stay warm during cold nights. It was a complete shield. A basic campfire built by our ancestors created a glowing circle of safety, about 30 feet wide. Inside that warm light, you were safe because big predators like leopards and hyenas would not step near the flames. Outside that small circle, the darkness belonged to the wild, and stepping into it meant certain death. Anthropologists who study the last remaining hunter-gatherer groups on Earth still see this exact rule in action today. People who leave the fire at night are much more likely to be hunted down. But this circle of firelight did something even more profound than saving our lives. It gave us time. Before fire, the daily life of a human ended the exact moment the sun went down. You had about 12 hours of light in the summer, and maybe only 8 hours during the winter. But fire suddenly added 2 to 4 extra hours to every single day. Over thousands of generations, these extra hours completely reshaped the human mind. In 2014, an anthropologist named Polly Wiesner published a famous study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. She spent years living with and recording the daily conversations of the Ijuu, Hwanzi Bushmen in the Kalahari Desert. These people still live in a way that is very close to our original human lifestyle. What she discovered was incredible. During the bright daytime, about 80% of their conversations were purely about work and survival. They talked about where to find water, which plants were safe to eat, and who was going to hunt. But at night around the campfire, the entire mood shifted. Suddenly, 81% of their conversations became stories. They shared accounts of distant lands, remembered their ancestors, told jokes, and sang songs. Polly Wiesner showed us that the campfire was our very first theater, our first school, and our first sacred space. The light of the fire allowed us to look into each other's eyes, dream together, and build the first pieces of human culture. Yet when the fire died down and everyone went to sleep, the night hid another deep secret. We often think that sleeping in one solid 8-hour block is the only natural way to rest. But history shows that we are completely wrong. In 2001, a historian named Roger Ekirch published a massive paper that shook the world of sleep science. He spent 16 long years digging through old archives, and he uncovered over 500 references to a forgotten way of sleeping. He read through old diaries, court records from the 1400s, medical papers, and even ancient texts like Homer's Odyssey. Every single one of these old documents talked about the night as being split into 2 distinct parts, which they called first sleep and second sleep. Before the rise of modern factories, humans did not sleep through the night. You would go to bed a couple of hours after the sun went down, sleep for about 4 hours, and then naturally wake up. You would then stay wide awake for 1 or 2 hours right in the middle of the night before falling into a second sleep that lasted until dawn. This midnight waking period was not a medical problem. It was a normal, beautiful part of everyday life. During these quiet hours in the middle of the night, people did not worry or panic about being awake. They used this time for everything. Old medical books from the 1500s actually advised patients that the absolute best time to study right or think deeply was during this midnight gap, because the world was totally quiet and the brain was completely calm. People stayed in their warm beds, just reflecting on their lives, or they used the time to talk deeply with their partners. Some people walked over to visit their close neighbors, while others sat down to pray or write down their dreams while they were still fresh. Modern historians had been reading these old diaries for hundreds of years, but they always changed the words as first sleep in their translations because they could not understand that humans ever slept differently than we do now. They were so blinded by their own modern habits that they literally fixed the ancient Greek and Latin words to make them fit into our modern world. But then modern medical science proved that history was telling the absolute truth. In 1992, a psychiatrist named Thomas Ware at the National Institute of Mental Health ran a groundbreaking experiment. He took a group of regular volunteers and completely removed all forms of artificial light from their lives. For 1 full month, these volunteers lived in a world where they experienced 14 hours of total darkness every single night, mirroring exactly how our ancestors lived before the invention of electric lights. Within just a few weeks, a strange thing happened. Every single participant in the study naturally stopped sleeping in one big block. Without anyone suggesting it, their bodies naturally fell into the exact same two-phase pattern. They slept for 4 hours, stayed awake in a calm state for a few hours, and then slept for another 4 hours. A deep biological program that had been buried under centuries of artificial light suddenly woke up inside them. Thomas Ware measured their hormone levels during that midnight awake time and discovered something truly beautiful. Their brains were producing incredibly high amounts of prolactin. This is the exact same hormone that your body releases when you are meditating or feeling deeply peaceful. The volunteers in the study did not feel tired, lonely, or anxious during the night. They described feeling deeply calm, reflective, and completely at peace with the world around them. It was a unique state of human consciousness, a quiet mental sanctuary that our modern world has completely swept away. So what exactly happened to this beautiful midnight sanctuary? The answer is simpler and more tragic than you might think. We killed it with light. In the 1600s, large European cities began installing the very first public street lamps. Paris led the way under Louis XIV because the government wanted to cut down on street crime, and London followed soon after. The night, which had always been a protected space for deep rest and quiet thoughts, slowly turned into a place where people could walk, spend money, and work. Then came cheaper wax candles, followed by gas lamps in the 1800s. Finally, in 1879, Thomas Edison made the electric light bulb easy for everyone to buy. In less than a single century, the natural dark that humans had known for 300,000 years was completely wiped out. Think about the modern word curfew. It actually comes from an old French phrase couvre-feu, which literally means to cover the fire. In medieval towns, a heavy bell would ring at night, telling everyone to put out their campfires and candles. This was not just about fire safety, it was because the night was supposed to be completely dark. Night was when you were meant to rest. In many old European cities, walking outside after dark, without a glowing lantern, was literally against the law. People feared the dark, but they also respected its power. Then we conquered it. We flooded our streets and bedrooms with artificial light, and we told ourselves it was progress. Today, we sit in front of bright blue screens for hours after the sun goes down. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a smartphone screen and the afternoon sun. When that light hits your eyes at midnight, it stops your body from making melatonin. It breaks your sleep into restless pieces. We did not just change our schedules, we erased a whole phase of human consciousness. And now, we call it insomnia. So what if your sleeplessness is not a disorder at all? What if waking up at 2 in the morning and staring into the quiet room is not your body failing you? The truth is, your body might just be remembering its oldest evolutionary code. We live in a fast modern world that forces us into a nonstop corporate rush. We feel immense guilt when we cannot sleep in one perfect block because society demands constant productivity. But our ancestors knew that the night was a sacred space meant for deep healing and quiet reflection. We traded all of that mental peace just to have a light switch, and most of us never even knew it was gone. The next time you find yourself wide awake in the dark, do not panic and do not reach for your phone. Put away the guilt, breathe gently, and just rest in that quiet space. Your body is simply doing what it was built to do. If this thought brought you a little bit of peace tonight, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Share your midnight thoughts with us in the comments below, because we are all looking for connection in the dark. Thank you for sitting with us by the fire, and we will see you next time.